Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before I get to our guests here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Courtney Harris on the podcast. She's a certified personal trainer as well as a nutrition coach. She also does online keto coaching. She's also a fitness model, and she's coming to us all the way from Colorado. But most importantly, she's our current guest. Courtney, thank you so much for coming on.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Well, I got to ask first of all, what's the weather like in Colorado today?
It is beautiful. Oh my gosh, the sun is shining. The cool thing about Colorado is when it snows, typically the snow melts by the next day. So it's absolutely beautiful. I think it's in the 50s today.
That's not even fair. We got it. I think it's 5 degrees right now in Minnesota, and it's like we got about a foot and a half of snow, I'd say, on the ground right now. So before I depress everyone with, our winter woes Colorado does have a winter coming ahead of it, but why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory on what inspired and what motivated you to get in shape and adapt this lifestyle?
Absolutely. So I've been on my own fitness journey since my junior year of high school. I took a weights class and I think I was really excited to just see how much strength I had and how much potential I had. So I started doing at home workouts, and then slowly that moved into going to the gym. So I first set foot into a gym in 2009, and I just didn't look back from there. It was insane. And I think just struggling through my own fitness journey and trying to figure out where my diet needed to be, what worked for my body specifically, was my biggest challenge. And I feel like it's a challenge for a lot of, especially women out there. So about 3 years ago, I jumped on the keto wagon and I haven't looked back. That's been almost 3.5 years now. And it literally, Ryan, it completely changed my life, changed my body. I had struggled with digestive issues my entire life. I had struggled with daily headaches, weekly migraines, and literally all of that cleared up within 1 month of going keto. So that was just something that really inspired me. And I think it just motivated me that much more because I found what worked for me and for my body. I'm very open to health in general. And what I tell people is find what works for you. But I started seeing the effects. I started seeing my body composition change. I started just feeling better than I ever had before. And it just spiraled. It just continued on. And from there, I've manipulated my diet, my workouts. I've tried different things. And it's just been such a beautiful journey that I've been on.
And that's awesome. And that also works perfectly into, I always love to ask all my health and fitness guests. If you were to walk into a gym with 100 people, there's 100 different ways as to how those people got into shape. Like you were talking about with, finding the ketogenic diet, but especially when it comes to, just making those changes. I always say, if you're to walk up to someone and say, hey, what did you do for that body part? It looks amazing. What works best for them 99% of the time is not going to work as good for you. What was that process like for you when it came to the weight training aspect of figuring out what worked best for you? Because I always compare it to sort of like being a mad scientist where you got to like concoct your own potion to figure out what exactly works best and how your body responds best.
Absolutely. And that's a great question. And I feel like I began trying new techniques. I started researching, I started learning. I got my certification for personal training and I just started implementing new techniques. And the thing for me, when I saw the most changes is when I got when I got my diet to where it needed to be, when I aligned my macros with my goals. Whereas prior, I was killing myself in the gym. I was doing 2 days. I was struggling. Do I lift heavy and do lower reps? Do I lift, lighter weight and do higher reps? And I don't think there is a magic answer. I feel like it's going in there, staying consistent and trying new things to really confuse the body and stir things up and keep things moving along.
Yeah, it really, because the body does, so many people that I've talked to, they do the same program for like a year or two, and then they don't see the changes, after, like 6 months, and it's, you got to mix things up and keep the body guessing, because then it just gets used to it. But I love to ask this question because everyone's genetics are different, and it works perfectly into what you were talking about, how it's just be the best version of yourself, because so many times in this day and age with technology, people try to compare themselves to other people and say, oh, I want his arms, or I want her abs, or just, everyone just wants, what other people have, but they don't realize that, I mean, you don't have their genetics, you don't know what they're doing to get that look, and it's just be the best version of yourself, because unfortunately your genetics can limit to what you can achieve. But I always say, when you first walk into the gym, everyone always has that one body part that really, really takes off, that they don't have to train as much. And then everyone always has that one body part that just lags behind, that they have to train into oblivion to get it to catch up. I mean, I'll give you mine, my back, just because I had jobs all throughout college of lifting and loading, packages into trucks, and you either got a really nice back or you quit. Those are basically the two options that were presented to you. But I'm also 6'3", so my legs and my lower body are just absolutely shot, where I mean, I have to train them into oblivion just to get them to look like any semblance like I train. I mean, I always say for calves, I could inject pure muscle into my calves and they wouldn't gain an ounce. I mean, I just don't understand it. I always have those friends now still who just, when they see me in the gym, they go, "Oh, hey Ryan, you plan on working legs anytime this year?" And it's like, dude, you saw me train them yesterday. Come on. But what were those body parts for you when you were getting started?
So for me, my ab structure has always been something I really haven't had to work on, which is such a blessing. And the way for me, when I see more of my abs, is when I lower my body fat percentage. So my abs are really something I haven't had to target or train specifically. My booty has been my hardest muscle to build, my hardest muscles, I should say, to build. I went from pancake to having a little bit of something. So for me, that's been my biggest challenge, is growing, especially my booty. And then my arms. Also, I used to really gain weight in my arms. So I think being where I'm at now and having more definition, it's definitely something I've dedicated to, working on and growing.
Yeah. And I mean, I love to ask that question, because every single answer is different. And it just proves that, I mean, some people, with body parts, it might come easier, but everyone is different. And I just want so many people to just realize that. But I mean, probably the biggest myth and stereotype that I love to bust on this podcast, I mean, I always say it's gotten better the last 5 years due to Instagram, but there are still so many women that have that fear that if they walk into the gym and they touch one weight, they're just going to hulk out and put on 50 pounds of muscle. And, like I always say, I'd spend my entire life savings just to be able to talk to you for 5 minutes. First of all, the government would probably kidnap you and try to take your genetics and put it into every single person, just because that would benefit so much. But obviously that's not true. But did you have that fear when you were getting started? And even if you didn't have that fear, how do you like to respond to that? Because I bet you still hear that all the time from people.
All the time, and especially from women. I think women in general have an underlying fear of being in the weight room. I feel like when we walk in there, it can be intimidating because the majority of the population is going to be male dominant. So being a female and getting in there, and especially if you don't know what you're doing, that can be really intimidating. But what I tell women is it is hard to grow muscle. It is very hard to grow muscle, and it takes time, it takes effort, and it takes getting your diet to be where it needs to be, getting in sufficient protein, having a surplus of calories, which I feel like for women, that surplus is a scary word, because we're so trained to think that eating less is better because that's going to help us lose weight. But if you can get it to where your macros are aligned, you can still build muscle and lose fat, but you still have to have that surplus of calories. So what I tell women when I get that is I say, you know what? It's not possible. It's not possible. And if you're wanting to really bulk up and get big, that takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of effort, and you have to know what you're doing. So squish that fear, walk into the weight room and tell yourself, the more muscle I build, it's not going to be bulky muscle, but the muscle I build is going to help me burn my fat. And that right there is what's so key to every woman, because I used to be a cardio queen. I used to do an hour of cardio a day plus weights. And if I didn't do weights, I would just get in my cardio because I felt like that's what I needed to do. But unfortunately, that's not how it works with the body. And if you're able to go into the gym and implement a strength training routine, that is going to be what changes your body composition. That's what's going to help you lose fat while building that lean muscle mass. So yeah, I just tell women, lose that fear because it's not reality.
Well, and I always tell them too, it's like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? You're going to get stronger and healthier. I mean, I always tell the story of, there was a girl in my college who told me, hey, I see that you're getting bigger and stronger. I want to go to the gym with you, but I'm just afraid that I'm going to, put on too much muscle. And I told her, I said, look, the amount of weight that you carry in your purse. Now, she had a very heavy purse. Now, I always say, I don't know if she had a dead sorority sister in there or something like that, but it was a very heavy purse. So I told her, I was like, you lug that purse around all day and you're not gaining an ounce of muscle from that. And that sort of convinced her. But I always say the one thing that I think impacts women so much more positively than men end when it comes to working out is the confidence boost that you get. I mean, we've heard so many stories on this podcast of women who've been able to make life-changing decisions, or they've really got that confidence boost and they're a little bit more assertive, and they just really, it just really helps out their lives in so many ways. And I always say that's the one thing that you can take from the gym and use to impact your everyday life, is that confidence boost. How have you taken that confidence boost and impacted your life with it?
Yes, I mean, everything that you just said really hits home with me because I think that is what inspires me and drives me as a coach is to help feed these women with positive energy and with positive vibes and with tips and tools to get them to where they need to be. So yeah, it's really been what's fueled my journey as far as being a coach and really helping women and empowering them to embrace yourself for where you're at right now, but also wanting to be better. To find that balance can be really, really hard because I feel like as women, we get into the shame game. We get on the scale that we are victims to the scale. And unfortunately, when you start that internal dialect and you hear those words constantly being fed to yourself, you're going to start believing it. So if you're looking in the mirror and saying, oh, I'm fat, this is gross, this is nasty, I mean, your body listens to what you think. So I think for me, it's really driven me as a coach to just help empower women and to give them that confidence because when your body begins changing and you start seeing differences, that at least for me is so motivating. And when I can be a coach and help guide women and they start seeing these changes, it's like it changes you from the inside out. Your mindset, I mean, everything begins to change in such a positive way and just helps boost that confidence to say, okay, I've got this. I've got this. I'm not helpless. I'm in control and this is in my hands.
Absolutely. Just the emotional and the mental benefits sometimes far outweigh the physical benefits. I mean, I say for the majority of the guests that I have on, they do, and that's one thing that I love to bring up. But how long into your journey before you were introduced to the ketogenic diet?
Yeah, so I had been in the gym, oh goodness, first set foot into a gym in 2009, and then I jumped on the keto wagon in 2016. Um, and like I said, that's really when I started to see a lot of changes because before, and I was really doing yo-yo dieting, trying to figure out what worked for me. I really struggled with it. And before I was where I'm at now, I was doing 2-a-days in the gym, going in the morning doing cardio, going back in the afternoon and doing weights, and always looking for that quick fix, always looking for that magic pill, that magic drink that's just going to make all your fat disappear. And when I finally adopted the philosophy that it really does come down to how you're fueling your body, that for me was the biggest change because I looked at it. My relationship with food completely changed when I moved to the ketogenic diet. And I didn't have that guilt that I carried before. And I built this positive relationship with my body and with food. I feel like so many women today, I was there. We get to a point to where we feel like food controls us. We feel like we've lost control, and that can be a really hopeless and overwhelming feeling. And especially when you're getting so much different information all out there when it comes to health. So for me, keto, it's completely changed my life. So to answer your question, I was in the gym for about 7 years before I switched to keto. And then, like I said, that's where I've seen the biggest changes in my life and in my body.
Well, I always say there seems to be a new diet every single day. So it's so
Yes.
hard for people to figure out what works best because, especially in the fitness industry, it is ever evolving so much. I mean, even from when you started in 2009 to now, you've probably seen like 1,000 fitness trends come on over the time. So it's so hard to know what to trust when everything is just constantly evolving. But what would you say is probably the biggest misconception that the general public might have about the ketogenic diet?
Yeah. So I feel like we as a nation, we were fooled in the 1980s. Dr. Ansel Keys, he really fooled the nation into making us think that fat is the enemy. So that's one of my biggest struggles. We were taught in the 80s that fat is what gives us cardiovascular disease, diabetes, does this, and this. Well, unfortunately, that's been completely debunked. And, I feel like we're now getting on the track to say, okay, now we're looking at sugar. Now we're looking at trans fat. Now we're looking at those negative things that affect the body. But for me, when I switched to keto, that was my biggest fear. Am I going to have higher cholesterol, higher blood pressure? Is this going to clog my arteries? And the cool thing is it does just the opposite. It does just the opposite.
So for anyone out there who's been living under a rock who might not know what the ketogenic diet is, could you go over briefly for us what it really is and what makes it different from other diets?
Absolutely. Great question. So, keto really is unique to its own. So, right now, our bodies can run off of two primary fuel sources. That's either glucose or that's fat. Most of us in the nation were sugar burners. So, our bodies are adapted to using glucose as our fuel source. Well, on the ketogenic lifestyle, you completely switch your fuel source from sugar, from glucose to fat. And keto is unique in its own because it's the only lifestyle that induces a state of ketosis. And ketosis is where all of the magic is at. That's where we get higher energy, just better cognitive function, weight loss, lower blood pressure, lower cholesterol, things like that. So keto really is unique because it does induce that state of ketosis. And we get to a state of ketosis when our bodies begin burning our fat for fuel. So our bodies can only hold a certain amount of what's called glycogen. So when we're eating carbs and sugar, whatever we're not burning is going to be turned to glycogen, and it's stored in our muscles and as our liver for fuel down the road. Well, ketosis is when you completely burn those through those glycogen stores, and your body is now going to begin pulling your fat, taking it to your liver, making it into ketones, and now your body is running off of ketones. So keto is a high fat, that is the most important thing, high fat, low carb, moderate protein diet. And the thing I tell people is there's different ways to do keto. There is no one size fits all. And for me, I've been able to find what style of keto works for me. But that's the biggest difference between keto and other diets is it's a high fat diet, no carb, and it also induces a state of ketosis, which is where all the magic is at.
I've had a couple of people that follow the ketogenic diet on the podcast, but one of the things that I hear from people when I ask them if they've ever followed the ketogenic diet, the one thing that I think they always bring up is they say, "Oh, it's a great idea, but it's not sustainable. You can be on the ketogenic diet maybe for like 6 months before it really starts to tear you apart." But how are you able to maintain this diet for such a long period of time? Just because from all the guests that I've had on, a lot of them say like it's very hard to maintain the ketogenic diet for a long period of time.
Yes, and I say I completely disagree with it. I do, because for me, this has been the one lifestyle I've been able to sustain long term because keto tastes amazing, the food is amazing. Ghrelin and leptin, which are the hunger hormones and the hormone that makes us feel satiated, those completely change in the body. So on keto, I don't feel as hungry. I can now fast for hours and hours. I have more energy than I've ever had before. Um, what was your initial question?
Oh, so how are you able to do it for such an extended
Oh
period of
yeah.
time? Because so many people don't think that you can.
Yes, absolutely. And so I just say, yes, you can. And if I can be living proof of that, I'm now 3.5 years. My blood panel, I had my blood panel taken about 2 months ago. I am healthier than I've ever been. And before I was borderline high LDL cholesterol. And now all of my numbers are exactly where they need to be. So this lifestyle is about eating whole foods, getting rid of the processed junk. And yes, there is a right way and there is a wrong way to do keto. Keto is not just about dairy and bacon and, red meat. No, it's about getting in your salads and your good fibrous veggies and getting in high quality meats. So yes, it is absolutely sustainable long term as long as you do it the correct way and you're not doing a dirty version of keto to where you're not fueling your body with what it really needs and with quality ingredients.
I do think a lot of the guests that I had on might have that misconception just because they're so used to like being on preps and then they sort of might use that to help them with a prep, but then they don't realize that you can also sustain that for a long period of time. But how long into the ketogenic diet before you started seeing those results that you were talking about when you really started to get in shape and see those things? Was it quick or did it just happen gradually and then it really took off?
Yeah, so it was quick. Let me back up. So the biggest changes I noticed was my digestive issues cleared up within 1 month of going keto. My daily headaches and weekly migraines became non-existent. At one point, I was eating up to 8 Excedrin a day just to manage my migraines. Now I don't take any over-the-counter medicine, so I am an all natural girl. But yeah, it's been phenomenal, and I would say, I started to notice some changes internally within the first few months, I started noticing my energy levels change. I started noticing I'm sleeping better. My memory got better. Just my sharpness, my clarity became much, much different. But about a year into my journey, I began supplementing with what's called exogenous ketones, which there's a lot of controversy out there, but that is when my body really started changing. So, about a year in, that's when I started really seeing some major, major changes with my body composition.
And how long into your journey before you decide, like, hey, I could be a nutrition coach and a certified personal trainer? How long before you realize that that's something that you'd want to do?
Yes, so great question. It was about a year and a half in. So I've been on keto for about a year and a half. I started, talking about this lifestyle with my parents because I come from a very, very unhealthy background. I do not have good genetics when it comes to health. Um, so I began, educating my friends and my family on this lifestyle, and I began becoming proof of what it was doing for me. And once I started seeing other people jump on the keto wagon and seeing, I mean, Ryan, I have seen this lifestyle beat cancer. Literally, it has beat a brain tumor of somebody very close to me. I have seen it reverse type 2 diabetes. I have seen it cure epilepsy. I mean, the list goes on. And so when I started seeing other people have the same or similar results to me, I was like, I have got to do something with this. So I created a Facebook group called Adventures in Keto. I started having more and more people come, and it clicked. I was like, I need to do this for a career. I want to help people. And if this lifestyle has given me back my relationship with food and with my body and given me so much positivity, I want to spread the word and I want to help coach people and help change lives. So it was about a year and a half in, and that's when I jumped on board, said I'm going to start my own business, and I just ran with it.
So when it comes to being a fitness model and doing those shoots where you have to be really lean down and you have to look amazing for the photos, how do you change up your diet before then, or do you keep the same diet and you just maybe do a little bit more cardio? How do you get in that type of shape for the photo shoots?
Yeah, great question. The cool thing is I don't really have to tweak too much where my body is at for photo shoots because I feel like I'm pretty show ready and pretty photo shoot ready. I typically give myself about 3 or 4 days. I follow a high protein keto life and I also follow a cyclical keto life. So, cyclical is mainly so that I can get in the indulgences that I love. I love dirty calories. I love pizza. I love donuts. I love ice cream. And I want to be able to enjoy those things and not completely cut them out of my lifestyle. So before a shoot, typically like the day before a shoot, I'll carb up. So I'll have a lot of complex carbs, have a lot of carbs, help fill those muscles up, and then I'll deplete my water intake the day before so that when it comes to the day of the shoot, I look a lot more shredded, just especially with that water depletion. That part's the biggest part. But like I said, there's different ways of doing keto. So cyclical keto works for me because I'm able to stir things up in my body, like we talked about earlier. Sometimes when you can add in, even if it's dirty calories or carbs or whatever it is, stirring the body up like that, getting out of your typical routine can really be successful in the body. So for me, it works. I change up my days when I do cyclical keto, when I have my cheats. But typically around a photo shoot, it's the day before where I do a lot of the work.
One thing that is not talked about enough, I think, especially on Instagram, that really should be, is the importance of sleep when it comes to this lifestyle. I mean, even if you had never touched a weight in your life, you need to get a proper amount of sleep. But especially when you really start working out, hitting things hard, sleep becomes ever more important. And I always say one of my favorite guests ever on the podcast, I had the number one sleep specialist on the planet call all the way from the UK, and he called from Oxford. And first of all, he had one of those British accents where you felt like you gained 10 IQ points just from talking to him. Where I was just
Yes.
telling him, I was like, you're gonna talk the entire time, and I'm just gonna listen because like it felt like I was not smart enough to talk to him, but it was amazing. We talked about the importance of sleep, and I mean, it becomes ever more important when you're really into this lifestyle. And are there any tips and tricks that you use to get the right amount of sleep, or do you just follow a same set routine where you're just able to get the sleep?
Yeah, so sleep has always been really important to me, and I can't stress that enough with my clients or who I coach. Getting insufficient sleep helps repair, rebuild, recover the whole entire body, not just your muscle. I am cursed. I am cursed with waking up early. I've been cursed since high school. Even if I go to bed late, I am still up before 6 a.m. So for me, now that I know that, I force myself. I go to bed between 8 and 9 every night, and then that way I can get a solid 7.5 to 8.5 hours of sleep, and that's priority in my life for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've always said one of the hardest workouts I ever had was a night where I pulled an all-nighter in college and still tried to go to the gym. I lasted about 20 minutes and I was like, "Yep, can't do it." I mean, it's just
Done.
yeah, sleep. That was the one day where I was convinced. I was like, "Okay, yeah, sleep is definitely like I need to get that proper amount of sleep." But being that you're in Colorado and it's a cold climate, sort of like Minnesota, especially during the winter time. One thing that I hear a lot is, especially during the winter where, it's the holiday season and people are, you know, celebrating and, they're doing a lot of eating and a lot of drinking. How are you able to still maintain this lifestyle while not overindulging in all the stuff that is presented to you?
Yes, so I do. I overindulge and I love it because for me, I'm like the holidays come once a year. So I want to be able to stuff my face with cookies and chocolate but the thing for me is I stick to my plan up until that day. And then on that day, I don't shame myself. I enjoy the food. And then I know, hey, next day I can get right back on it if that means fasting, if that means killing it in the gym. Allow yourself to have those indulgences because I feel like so many times us as a society, we make health to be such a negative thing and almost the enemy. And if you can switch that mindset and look at food in a positive light and allow yourself to have those indulgences without that shame, that's really important. So for me, I allow myself during the holidays and during, special events, birthdays, I allow myself to have those indulgences because that is important to me.
That's awesome because yeah, I would definitely go crazy if I had to live the lifestyle while it's during the holidays and trying to maintain. I mean, we've had people that have gone on preps through then. It's like, oh,
Yes.
good luck with that. I mean, it just sounds so challenging. But also living in a colder climate, especially during this time of year. Another excuse that we hear a lot is people find it hard to have that excuse to go to the gym when it's like like 10 degrees outside or when it's really cold and there's snow on the ground. Is there anything that you like to try to tell people to still get that motivation up to go to the gym when basically, let's be honest, our bodies are telling us to just sit by a fire and have hot chocolate, basically?
Yes, absolutely. Your motivation is not going to always be in there. Your motivation is not going to be there. So if you can have the discipline, if you can have the discipline to at least get there, even if you have a half-ass workout, you're still getting in there and getting it done. So motivation is not going to be there. And for me, when I'm not feeling motivated, sometimes just getting out of my PJs and getting into my workout clothes and washing my face, that for me, hey, I'm ready to go. So find what kind of gets you going. If that's a hot shower, if that's taking some pre-workouts, drinking a cup of coffee, do what you got to do because the motivation's not always going to be there. It's got to be down to your discipline. So get there and be proud of yourself when you get there. And when you walk in the gym, ask yourself, how bad do I want this?
I gotta give a little asterisk. Be careful with pre-workout, everyone. My first time, one of my friends was
Yes,
being an idiot, and he gave me 3 scoops, and I didn't know that it was 3 scoops. So yeah, it was an interesting workout. That's all I'll say. So just make sure that you're careful with that
yes,
stuff. But yeah,
yes.
yeah, absolutely. But being that you started into this lifestyle, a lot of people don't realize the dedication and how it sometimes can take over your life. And we hear a lot of times that you might lose friends just because they don't understand the dedication that it entails and you're not able to go out as much. How do you like to compensate for that and still maintain a social life while also living this at times a strict lifestyle?
Yeah. So for me, my tribe is important. Who I surround myself with is important. And if I have people in my life that aren't going to support me and push me through positive things in life, unfortunately, those aren't people I really want to engage with, people I don't want to surround myself with. Because a lot of times when people try to demotivate you or talk crap about eating healthy or going to the gym, that's their own insecurities coming through. And for me, I want to be around people who push me, who motivate me, who drive me, who are proud of me. Those are the kind of people I want to surround myself with.
Absolutely, it really does just seem it's like, well, yeah, why would you want those people in your life? But two questions that I love to ask all the health and fitness guests that I have on the podcast. For the first one, I mean, there were so many positive things that happened to me when I started working out and getting bigger and stronger. But the one negative thing is that you're going to get asked to move a lot of people's furniture.
Mhm.
You're gonna get asked to open a lot of pickle jars or bottled water or anything that's sealed on tight. You're basically the go-to strength person. I'm still at
Yes.
home with my parents for the next 2 months before I move out, and every single time that they come home with groceries, I basically have to lift the car into the driveway and bring in the groceries myself. Has that been a similar experience with you, where people just take one look at you and they just assume that you can do favors for them?
Yes and no. Maybe being a female is a little bit different than being a man. um, so no, I actually don't get that a lot, but I love it, man. If people want to use me for my muscles or for my strength, man, I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
I know. I always say it's different because, especially being 6'3" too, I could have zero muscle at all, and they'd still say, "Yeah, tall guy, come and help us with this." So it became hard for me, especially now that I'm at the age where everyone's moving out of their parents' house. So every other weekend I'm getting a text, "Oh, hey, you want to come help me move parents?" House?" I said, "No, I don't want to, but I'll do it." But it's don't expect me to be like all happy go lucky, like jumping over, skipping over there. But yeah, it's definitely a thing. But adding on to that, I mean, I always say you are not an average looking woman when it comes to your physique. So I always say sometimes, especially like if you're wearing like maybe like cut off sleeves or something, you kind of become like a mini celebrity in that you always get a lot of attention where you might get stares, and it's just fascinating for some people to see that. What has that been like getting used to that? Has it gotten easier for you as your career and journey has gone on?
Yeah, I feel like I've progressed into it. And for me, it feeds me. When people come up to me and recognize the fact that I work out or give me a compliment, I love that because that gives me an opportunity to connect with somebody and to maybe help give them some motivation and some inspiration. And if I can just go to the grocery store and because I'm wearing a tank top, if that can inspire somebody, oh my gosh, I am so for that. I am here to motivate, inspire however I can. So for me, it feeds me. When people, notice or make comments or ask questions, I love that. It definitely fuels me.
Well, I always say the one negative too is that you're going to have to arm wrestle a lot. At least in my occasion, that was the one thing that happened all the time. So yeah, just be aware of that. But now my favorite question to ask, because I always say for fit guys they have their own clothing problems as well. But I mean, fit women, it is just extraordinarily more picky when it comes to finding clothes that work. Because I always say if you have big broad shoulders, dresses aren't your best friend. Jeans are another thing that we have all the time. Where if you have a big lower body and a small waist, jeans are can be somewhat hard. What are some ways that you have found that you're able to compensate for the fact that your clothing options can be limited, and sometimes you even have to have different wardrobes depending on what type of shape you're in for the year?
Yes, absolutely. So for me, I'm all about comfort. I am so not a typical female. I am such a tomboy, don't wear makeup. I am all about comfort and not fashion. So the clothes that I wear are typically pretty easy to form and shape whatever I have going on. Leggings, I live in leggings. I live in leggings. I probably only have about two pairs of, actually, I think I have three pairs of jeans that I wear. But like I said, my lower body doesn't change a lot. My biggest struggle has been my broad shoulders. I have a very broad back. I've had a broad back my whole life. So finding and being smaller chested. So finding shirts that are able to fit my back that aren't so tight under my arms. It's all about just getting something that's comfortable, that's going to be stretchy, you know, and finding what works for you for sure.
Well, I always say whoever invented leggings is a very rich person, because I mean it's everyone seems to be using them. But when it comes to being a personal trainer, I mean, I always say you got to be like a therapist as well, basically, because you really have to help people through all of their issues. But what would you say is probably the biggest excuse that you get from people as to why they can't make that change and adapt a more healthy lifestyle?
Yeah, time. Typically, it's always time. That's the number one excuse that I get. I don't have time to do this. I don't have time to meal prep. I don't have time to go to the gym. And I just tell them it's all about priorities and what you prioritize in your life. And if it's something that you really want, you will make time for it. Whether that's going before you go to work, whether that's going, I mean, shoot, I used to work a 9 to 5 for, oh my gosh, 18 years. I want to say 18 years. And I got in the habit. I meal prepped. On the weekends I would pack my or prepare for the week, and then each day I would pack my lunch, bring that to work. So I reflect that question back to people and just say, how bad do you want it? If you're willing to put so much negative energy and negative talk into what you don't like about yourself, what are you willing to do to change that? And that's going to take effort, and it's going to take time, and it's going to take consistency. So when it's something you really want, you will make time. You will.
Well, and again, I don't advocate this, but I always said if you were to follow a person around for 24 hours in a day and mark down like every activity that they did, I can guarantee you would find enough time for them to get a workout in where it's like, yeah, oh, you sat and watched TV for like an hour and a half after you got home from
Yes.
work or relaxed. It's like, nope, you could have worked out then. You would find at least a handful of times where you're like, you could have got the work. Again, I don't advocate anyone doing that, but I'm just saying, everyone always has time because we all live the same 24 hours. And I mean, like you said, it's all about your priorities, but what is that feeling like when you get to work with a person and see them really lose a bunch of weight and really gain that confidence? Because we see on Instagram so many times what it's like for the client when they do those, awesome transformation photos and they really just talk about how much has benefited them. But we never get to hear what it's like for the person behind that. What is that feeling like for you when you know that you've really helped change someone's life?
Yeah, it's honestly, Ryan, it's what drives me. It really does. It to see, especially women, I really connect with a lot of women, just to see the mental and mindset changes that come with physical changes. Oh my gosh, it is so fulfilling to my heart. It feeds me in so many ways. And to be able to watch somebody's transformation, whether that be weight loss, gaining muscle. One of my clients is wheelchair bound. He's been wheelchair bound for 7 years, and he just took 9 steps the other day. And I lost it. I was a sobbing mess. I was so happy. So that for me is what drove me to choose this career. And now that I'm in it, it is the number one driver for me is seeing people's transformations and seeing their lives change.
I mean, I can't imagine what that must be like. And I always say, if anyone's looking for a career to do, just do something where you help out people. Because I honestly think that there's not a better feeling in the world than helping out others and just getting that satisfaction. But if someone were to walk up to you and say, "Hey, Courtney, we made a decision. You can change one thing about the health and fitness industry," and everyone would go along with it, what would be one thing that you would like to see changed?
Ooh, that is a good question. Something in the health and fitness industry that I would like to see change. Maybe it would just be women's perception on weightlifting is something that I would love to change. Getting women more comfortable in the weight room and losing that idea that if I touch a dumbbell, I'm going to gain 20 pounds of muscle, and giving them the tools and the confidence to get in the weight room and be comfortable doing it, and teaching them that it's not about cardio, it's about strength training and functional training. So maybe that's what it would be, or maybe just to continue changing minds on the keto life, because there's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of confliction out there when it comes to this lifestyle. So the more I can just shed light on the beautiful things of it, and bring awareness to that, that's probably something I would change too.
Yeah, and that's awesome, and that also sort of goes along with, I mean, one of the big training techniques that I really was not aware of. Well, I was somewhat aware of it, but I never really practiced it. Was time under tension training. Do you like to incorporate time under tension in your workouts? Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I like to implement all different types of techniques when it comes to my training, because like we talked about, there is no one size fits all, and somebody's body might be more receptive to a certain type of training. And just changing it up and really confusing the body and implementing all sorts of techniques. I really make that a priority in my training.
I mean, yeah, it's one thing that really benefited me, and I really could not stress that enough. So anyone out there who's looking at a training technique, I highly recommend looking up time under tension. I think it's really helped me. But a big thing that a lot of newbies in the gym really don't understand is they think that they have to go every single day, and that you have to get that you have to get a certain amount of you have to be there for a certain amount of time. They don't realize that it depends on your workouts too. I mean, I have some people that go there for 15 minutes and they get as much of a workout in as someone who's going there for 2 hours just because they do the high intensity, interval training, the hit training, is if for anyone out there who's familiar. But also, I mean, it just varies so much. But what does your training week look like? Because so many people they think that all these people that are in great shape, they must work out every day, but it's
Yeah.
vastly. I've only had like one or two people on the podcast that actually do that, but on their off days they just basically do cardio. But what is your training schedule like in a week?
Yeah, because I take rest days very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? They're very important, and they're very important when it comes to recovery. So I work out 5 days a week. I'll typically do 3 days on, 1 day off, sometimes 4 days on, 1 day off. I don't do cardio. I don't do cardio. The only thing I do is I go in, I warm up for 5 to 10 minutes in the sauna, get my muscles to warm up, and then I go get on a cardio machine for 5 to 10 minutes, and that's the only cardio I do. My full routine is no longer than an hour. I don't lift weights for more than an hour. And that's it. So I'm typically in and out of there with my warm up in the sauna and my warm up on a machine within an hour and 15 minutes or less.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, it just proves that so many people just have that myth where it's a certain set amount of time where you got to be there for this amount of time, and I think a lot of people just use that then where they don't get as much of a workout in if they're there for 2 hours because they might be talking to people, they might be not really focusing in on the workout. But one thing that I find so fascinating because we've talked about this a vast amount of time, but everyone's body type is different. So being a personal trainer, how do you like to figure out what works best for a person, or what are some ways that you try to find that? Because I imagine that can be frustrating at times, knowing that, hey, what I did for this client might work amazing, but for this other client, I might have to try to find something new, where it seems like you're always constantly trying to evolve your methods of training and how you uh how you spend your time with your clients.
Right. Absolutely. And it's just a trial and error thing. It's finding out what your client first of all enjoys, because I feel like so many times coaches go out there and they have this specific routine or specific training style that doesn't necessarily align with what a client enjoys. And I want to build my my workouts for my clients so that they enjoy it, so that they're going to want to come back, so that they have fun with it. So I feel like it's just, especially when I have a new client, I kind of just throw a whole bunch of stuff at them, different techniques, whether that be HIIT, plyo, CrossFit, TRX. I just throw all different kind of stuff in there and just see what lights them up, what they enjoy, what's harder for them, and specifically build it for them and what they're looking for.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, you definitely, and I think it really does add a lot of knowledge to the personal trainer because everyone's body is different. So, I mean, you find out so many more methods to help people with their weight loss journey and just help better their lives. But if we were to talk to you a year from today, where would you like to be at in your health and fitness journey? What are some goals that you'd like to have achieved?
Yes. So my biggest goal right now is building my business. I cannot wait to continue to grow my business, be able to help change the lives of especially women around me, and get more coaches under me to be able to specifically coach for different lifestyles, because I'm only a keto nutrition coach, but I want to have a coach who's vegan, who's paleo, so that people can find what works for them. But as far as my own personal goals, my biggest personal goal right now is to perfect the muscle up. I'm not there. I'm not there. I am one of those people who it takes me a long time to learn something. So I definitely want to perfect the muscle up. I feel like physically, I am where I want to be. I really am. And I feel like I'm kind of on a maintaining routine because I don't really want to build too much more muscle and I don't want to lean down any more than I am. So it feels so good to be at this point in my life to say, I'm actually happy with where I'm at, and I don't have a lot of goals as far as what I want to change, because I really am happy with what I've achieved. So yeah, I don't have a ton of changes I want to see with my body composition, but there's some things, personal records, weights, levels I want to hit, in those aspects.
What are some personal records that you're trying to go for?
Yes. So right now my bench press is fourth set, 135 pounds for 8 reps. So I want to do fourth set, 155 for 4 reps. So it's going to take me a while to get there, but I know I can do it.
Do you ever max out, or do you like to do just reps?
I've never maxed out. Isn't that terrible?
Hey, hey, I've been one of those people too where I've seen so many of my friends get injured doing maxes out. So yeah, it's one of those where I don't really. I mean, except in high school where you kind of had to for like football in the weight room where they try to get you to max out. But can I say, when you said muscle ups, I've been too afraid to even try those. Now I can do a lot of pull ups, but like with muscle ups, I see too many of those fail videos on the internet where people mess up their chin just because when they're going down. And so yeah, that's one thing that I bet I could probably do, but I just don't have the stomach for. I don't want to come down and mess up my chin. So yeah, I gotta warn everyone
I
out there, be
do.
careful for that because they are some funny videos, but yeah, you just look at that and you're like, oh my god, that's just something that you wouldn't want to see happen. But if someone were to walk up to you on the street and just say, wow, Courtney, you look amazing, I want to get in shape too, what do you like to tell them just to get them motivated to start their journey? Because I find for so many people, just taking that first step into the gym is the most important thing. Because once you take that first step in the gym, I always say it's almost impossible to walk out of the gym without getting a workout in. So, what do you like to try to tell people to give them maybe that extra added push that they might need?
Yeah, I ask questions. I ask them what are their goals? What are they wanting to do, and how bad do they want it? Because, like you said, it starts with getting there. It starts with if that's your home gym, if that's an actual gym, getting there and getting started is where it's at. So I just ask people, how bad do you want it, and what are your goals? Are they attainable? Start small and work your way up. Celebrate those little victories. So yeah, I feel like just probing and finding what inspires people because different things inspire us. So finding what it is that motivates you and inspires you, implement that into your weekly and daily life so that you will find that external motivation to get you to where you need to be.
Absolutely. And one thing that I find fascinating with the ketogenic diet, and especially with these new, like we were talking about before, these new trends that are coming out, like we have the impossible burger at Burger King, and foods like that. How does that go into the ketogenic diet? Is that have a place at all when it comes to, is it can you be vegan while also being ketogenic, or is it you really have to choose one?
You can be vegan and keto, but it's very hard. It is a lot harder, but it's doable. It's doable. You can even do, I'm not promoting this, but you can even do fast food keto style, but for me, it's getting in those quality ingredients, and that's where it's at.
Yeah, I was gonna say, everyone go watch the movie Super Size Me if you want to
Yes.
think about what it's like to go on a fast food diet. I mean, I watched that when I was younger, and I'll admit it, I work nights, so I still sometimes, the only thing that's open is McDonald's. So like once every 2 weeks, you have to go there just because that's the only thing that's open. But yeah, that was definitely a shocking thing for me. But is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
Oh my goodness, I cannot. I want to give a shout out to my photographer, Eric Cooper Photography and ECP Talent. I am an agent for the talent agency, and it is just exploding here in Colorado Springs. And I have the best photographer in Colorado. He always makes me look good, even when I really don't look good. So definitely a shout out to him and the agency.
And that's awesome. And
And my
again,
girl Tasha, and my girl Tasha Lick. She's
Tasha,
my bestie.
that,
Yes.
that's awesome. Well, maybe I'll have her on the podcast then too, so we can
Yes.
talk about that. So yeah, and again, you guys, I'll leave a link to Courtney's Instagram page down below, and everyone go and give her a follow. And I just got to warn you ahead of time, you will get motivated to lose some weight and get off the couch and stop eating all those Twinkies. But yeah, again, and it was so great having you on, and I wish you nothing but the best in your journey. If anyone has any questions about the ketogenic diet or anything like that, I bet she'd be more than willing to answer those questions for you. And again, we cannot thank you enough for coming on and sharing your story.
Absolutely, and thank you too, Ryan. I appreciate you, and I appreciate what you're doing, because the more we can spread the word and educate and hear people's stories that other people can connect to is huge. So thank you for taking the time to have me on. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I always say I started this just because, as you can probably tell, I'm a very talkative person and I love to talk to people. So, yeah, and yeah, I'm just all about spreading that positivity. And I always feel that, especially on social media apps like Instagram, people, they just see the results. They don't know the person behind the results. They just see, like, oh, that's them doing a workout, but they don't get people's backstory. So that's one of the reasons why I was inspired to have health and fitness guests on too, because a lot of it is just posting progress photos or posting them working out, and you don't really get like how they got to that point. You don't really, I mean, a picture can say some like 1,000 words, but if you post your transformation photo, you don't have the backstory really behind it, where people don't realize where you came from. So that's why I love doing that, and yeah, just spreading that positivity. But again, Courtney, we cannot thank you enough for coming on. And again, everyone, go and give her a follow down below. Shout out to her dogs as well. We had the dog photo. I love it. I love having dogs on the podcast. And again, you guys, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.